Okay, so this is the continuation of the painting that I started during our Leveling Up class. I've sped this up a bit, so it's not going to take so long. This is part one. There'll be a few parts just because of the length. Now here I'm getting some colors together. I've got on my palette some burnt sienna, some yellow, it looks like dairyland yellow, and some yellow oxide, which is kind of equivalent to like yellow ochre, and an orange. And I've mixed up a fairly dark and warm color so that I could use it as a base for the seaweed that's at the shoreline there. I've also added to it some of my medium mixture of GAC 100 and GAC 500 that's mixed together in a 50-50 ratio, and just put it in a little container with a squeeze cap so it's always ready. This dark mixture is actually burnt sienna, the dairyland yellow, and I also added a little bit of ultramarine blue just to tone it down, gray it out a little bit. Now I've added more of the dairyland yellow to the mixture, and I'm layering that on top of the dark warm layer that I had just previously put on. So here I've mixed some of the dairyland yellow with yellow and a tiny bit of burnt sienna to have a really bright yellow for the highlights on the seaweed. So here you can see the palette and some of the paint mixes I've put together for the seaweed. I'm now making up a green with carbon black and yellow. I'm also adding some turquoise to the mix just to give it more of a bright limey color, and then I added some yellow to that to brighten it and warm it up just a touch more. So now I'm putting in some more dark values just to define the rocks better. There's some shadow and the cracks in the rocks, and just the general, give a better idea of general shape, make them a little bit more dynamic. and I'm using a mixture here of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Something to keep in mind when painting with acrylics is that it is going to dry a little bit darker than when you put it on, so you will just have to adjust to that as you're painting. When you look at the areas where I put on the very bright yellow for the seaweed, you can now see how that has toned back and dried darker from when I initially put it on. So that's something just to think about. I continue to put in some lines here and there to help shape the rocks, show indications of cracks and shadows. So now I've mixed up a light gray to put on the rocks to show some highlights and where the sun falls. So area perspective is very important in landscape paintings, and you want the foreground to be warmer and more saturated in color than the far distant landscape. So what I'm doing here is that I'm layering on a red glaze over top of the gray that I had put on earlier to just warm it up and make it feel like it's coming towards the viewer more. Then I'm putting in additional highlights. I'm sort of jacking those up a bit based on all the colors and values that I've put in up to now, and the fact that acrylic paint, as I said, it goes a little bit darker after it dries, so I'm just touching up these highlights in the water in that puddle, the reflective pool puddle there. So now I'm going to start working the water, tweaking it and layering in some different tones of blue and value, a little bit of yellow in there, yellow ochre in there, so it looks like you can sort of see the seaweed close to shore if you were looking through the water, and correct the values of that and put in a little bit of wave texture in the water in the foreground and behind those little rocky outcroppings there that you can see. One thing that I try to do while I'm painting is to step back and have a look at my work from, 4, 5, 6 feet or even more away. Always find that because you're painting, you're so close to your painting while you're actually working on it, that sometimes you lose perspective. And stepping back and having a look from a distance will really help you determine what your values are doing and if you're along the right route where you're going with your work. So we're coming to the end of part 1 of working on the BlueRocks painting, and I will be posting part 2 in the next couple of days. Make sure to look for it. Part 2 will be tweaking the sky and a little bit more on the water.